we go. So before we get started, we have a lot of people online today, and some may be new to cloud computing. You probably have heard the buzzword, the cloud. Well, what does it really mean? And really, essentially, it's in the delivery of computing services via the internet. And it could be anything from storage to servers to virtual machines to networking, all the above. And really, the delivery method is another wonderful acronym called SaaS, which is software as a service. And typically, like your cable bill or your cell phone bill, you're renting services, you're renting storage space, you're renting access to the internet. It's the same concept. So it allows you to basically take functionality that you previously had purchased a perpetual license for, and you paid maintenance, and you move that over from a CapEx expense over into an operating expense. So really it allows you for the ability to almost like a la carte as you go, pick the type of services that you need to help augment or expand the business offerings that you take to your customers. So it really is the future of computing. And as we were looking at, what we were going to do in this space to help our customers, we wanted to take that SaaS offering and expand the definition. So within Kodak, a service includes all of the software tools, whether it's a license for an on-premise tool or a license to some of the new software in the cloud. We want to provide you everything that's needed to perform a function or a specific task in a workflow. So really it's not just that you're taking a SaaS subscription to a piece of software. We're really going to bring you the full solution, including training, including setup, including delivery, to really add value. You're going to hear that over and over again through this presentation on what our guiding principle is around some of these new platforms that we're developing. So on this slide is just kind of the generic benefits of cloud computing, pretty well known, right? It allows you to do a lot of different things: high performance, lower cost, productivity, reliability. However, the capabilities that are delivered by a vendor who provides what's known as infrastructure as a service will differ based on the capabilities of that one particular vendor. Cloud is a big, industry initiative, and you have some very well-known providers in the market like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, IBM. But you also have local small companies that may have a single location with a rack and some storage, and they're offering services to local businesses. So the capabilities differ by who you're working with as a vendor. Now, for ourselves, for 3 decades, if you look at the lineage of this development group, our core competency is developing very complex software to process graphic arts files. That's what we're very good at, and you can see our track record is pretty well known. However, with cloud computing, we need help, right? This is things that are new to us. So our approach is not to learn on the job, but to go out and partner with best-in-class industry experts in this field. So one of the things you'll see as you go through the presentation is that we have partnered with Microsoft, and we are developing directly on their Azure cloud platform. We're not just hosting software there, we're actually developing directly on that platform. Also, you'll hear a lot about analytics, and we partnered with another industry leader in business intelligence and analytics software, a company out of Australia called Yellowfin. And it's not just the platform or the software components that we wanted to go and bring into this consortium of companies that are working on the PRINERGY Cloud. We also need experts who have spent their entire life managing large data centers. So we've also partnered with a global IT services firm to assist us with the 24/7 operational management and also 24/7 security management of the platform itself. So that's a very important point we want to mention. Now, a little bit on strategy. What was our approach to the cloud? There's a lot of different things that you can do with cloud computing, and what is Kodak's strategy? So there's really 3 models or 3 scenarios that you could look at, right? There's a public cloud, there's a private cloud, and there's a hybrid cloud, and then there's variants of each of those. So our approach is to provide public services in the cloud that work directly with your on-premise PRINERGY and UWS products. So we're starting with PRINERGY first, and as you can imagine, we'll begin to expand from there. And that strategy was formed after speaking with many, many customers and getting their input on which way should we go. And really, as we talked to customers, it was pretty clear that although it would be a really fun engineering product or project to take our existing products and just port them to the cloud, we really weren't going to provide any net new benefit to you, the user, right? It was basically the same functionality that you're enjoying today, although upgrades would be a little bit easier to manage. Customers came back and said, you know what, we need help solving problems. We need help solving business challenges. And that's our guiding principle, is we've developed a platform on which you're going to see new SaaS offerings come to market that really do two things. One, net new functionality that maybe you didn't even think that you needed, but once you're exposed to it, you realize this is something that's very interesting. But also, as we take existing PRINERGY functionality and we migrate it to the cloud, we're also re-architecting it. We're making it better. As I mentioned, that expanded definition of a service, we want to completely solve one workflow function or task and just nail it. So that's something we'll talk about in detail as we go through. So you will see rapid releases through the course of this remaining year. So stay tuned, keep up to speed on what we're doing, because we are moving at a fairly rapid pace. The benefits of a hybrid cloud are pretty straightforward, right? It's really around business risk management. As certain software components, you migrate those to the cloud, you have to look and see what is, the least amount of risk for my company. And a hybrid cloud really is kind of that best of both worlds solution. You leverage your existing capabilities, you don't lose or give up any functionality you have today, and you begin to augment that solution with new capabilities. If you do have the opportunity, some customers have hosted completely in the cloud. It's really around available bandwidth, but you also still have to de-risk that scenario. So as an example, if you do go 100% in the future that every software product is in the cloud, you're probably more than likely paying for 2 internet access points via 2 separate companies that provide ISP services, because you have to de-risk your business. Because when you have everything in the cloud, the biggest threat to your business is what people call a backhoe, right? In infrastructure projects, they cut a trunk line and then you're down for days and you can't do anything. You have to plan for that accordingly. And the reason that we looked at kind of a slow migration to the cloud is really here in North America. You can see the availability of high-speed internet access is growing. So this is a publicly available report from Economy State of the Internet, but you can see right now the average internet speed for North America is about 14.2 megabits per second. But if you look at by state, you can see here the darker colors, it's much higher. So really, internet speed is based on location. It's really, in many cases, if you're closer to a residential area where a telco provider has an opportunity to sell more services to more customers, then you're able to get higher internet speed. If your printing plant is out in the middle of a cornfield, your available bandwidth is going to be constrained. The other thing you have to take into account is different software products, more than likely up in the front office, have already moved to a cloud offering. You're now sharing a very valuable resource. And pre-press workflows are heavy lifting. As you guys know, many times we're working with very large files and lots of data, and we need to process them very, very quickly and have very, very short cycle times. So all of these constraints need to be factored into plans, and this is one of the reasons why we went with hybrid, because it's really around usability, right? It's impacted by bandwidth and latency. If you're not familiar with the term latency, it's basically the time for a packet to travel from one computer to another and back. So what that means is if you're working with low amounts of data, small amounts of data, having QuickBooks in the cloud, it's probably very usable, very responsive. You feel like you're working local, but it's probably not so great for retouching a 200 megabyte image in Photoshop, right? Essentially, but usability becomes a serious issue for you. But we do see that within our printing market, that the adoption of cloud-based software is on the rise. As I mentioned earlier, it's typically starting with the software products that don't use a lot of data or maybe not have a lot of frequently updates of data. So moving to a cloud-based platform is very much an option for you. So again, you can see the trend is here. It's a matter of picking and choosing when and where and how you're going to leverage How much risk do you want to take on by putting, the bulk of your software applications in the cloud, and how do you de-risk and mitigate the potential of loss of access to those software products? All have to be factored into your business plans. So a little bit now into what we're doing. So as I mentioned earlier, the first thing we wanted to do is we're not really bringing out a software service, a singular software service. What we're really bringing is a platform that we're going to have many services that are available that are very much focused on specific tasks that customers need to get addressed in the workflow, or maybe have never been addressed at all. Just things that people have dealt with over the years, and as painful as they may be, because there was no solution for those problems. And as we were talking to customers about what we were going to do in the cloud, we also started to hear a common theme that, a lot of our customers acknowledge that over the last 15 years in pre-press technologies, there's been great strides, right? We've knocked the time to process files down significantly. Rendering speeds are up. Automation capabilities are just really broad. And we're able to reduce cycle time and the amount of labor that's needed in pre-press significantly. But customers were saying they cannot see any longer where improvements could still be made. And we started to really think about, why is this? And what we realized is there's a lot of information available in the manufacturing operation that is invisible, that can't be seen. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that through the course of the presentation. But what you're going to see is a repeated theme from Kodak in this presentation and going forward is around an analytics-enabled workflow. And I'll give you some more details around that in just a few slides. So for the platform itself, what are some of the benefits? So as I mentioned, we're fully leveraging the capabilities provided by our infrastructure provider, Microsoft. They're global. They have multiple data centers around the world, which means we don't have one data center up and running for PRINERGY Cloud. We have 3. Each region around the world has its own data center. And what's important about that is it allows us to reduce the number of hops through the internet that your files need to, or your data needs to travel. So there's performance improvements, but also we address concerns around data privacy and movement of data in some countries and regions outside of their borders where they have specific rules and regulations around privacy. So it's very, very important. We also have, as I mentioned, the experts who are sitting there helping us monitor the system 24/7, not only to make sure there's high availability, that there's high performance, but also security. So 24/7 security scans are happening as we speak. So this also, because it's SaaS, allows you to scale it up. You basically can tailor it to your needs. So you can start small and just continue to grow out the different services that you need. You don't have to make a large investment up front. It's very flexible, and it's subscription priced. So it allows you to go up and down. As an example, maybe you move some work to another plant, or unfortunately maybe you lost some work and you don't need as much storage. You can go down a tier or go up a tier. So you have complete flexibility into trying to have the cost controls when you move to a SaaS model. And as I mentioned, we're building analytics in core to everything we do going forward. Every product, you're going to see more and more data being collected, and we'll get into that in a little more detail in a sec. So analytics, we're just talking about that. Let's do a little deep dive into some of the benefits of an analytics-enabled workflow. What does it really mean? You probably have heard another buzzword called the Internet of Things. And you may have at home a web-enabled security camera on your front porch, or a thermostat, right, that you can control from your smartphone. And these are all, some people will refer to them maybe as a bit of toys. The real driver is the Internet of Business Things. And the reason it's a driver is all of your production and business software and your manufacturing equipment that's more modern is throwing off data in the form of log files, error messages, temp files. And this is data that has tremendous value. It has visibility into what's going on in the business. As an example, from the time that one job finishes processing in PRINERGY to the time that it begins to be imaged on a CTP device, you can see that mean time, and you can see the lag time in your production workflow, right? Some of these things are invisible to you now. So what are we doing? Well, we're somewhat fortunate in that back in the early 90s, we took advantage of our new PDF-based workflow, and we took a very crucial decision that we were going to build it around a database, and a very powerful database from Oracle. So Gartner has this wonderful term called dark data, and PRINERGY in and of itself is a rich source of dark data. We collect information that you interact with your customers via Insight PrePress portal. Every comment, every approval, every request for correction, all captured in the database. Every operator job note, every error message, every RBA trigger event is all captured, and then we can analyze that data. The problem is, if you look at the graphic to the left, while you have great visibility in what was going on in a single job, you could not study across multiple jobs, across multiple time periods, or across multiple servers. So what our decision analytics function within the PRINERGY Cloud does is it's mining that rich source of data from PRINERGY. So it's taking that data that right now is almost in a machine form, right? It's really designed for someone to be looking at, who's a developer, and troubleshoot, and get it converted into actionable data, something that can tell a story, data that can help guide you towards seeing a problem, a recurring problem in your workflow, identify that problem, and see if it can be addressed and provide more visibility into areas in the workflow which you can extract and be more profitable. So the trends around analytics are pretty straightforward, as you can see here from the founder of Yellowfin. Really, even a small or a large business, it's the same. You're starting to swim in data, whether it's colorimetric data that you're measuring out on your presses, it's PRINERGY history data, it's data from your press or Make Ready. Being able to collect that data and make sense of it is crucial in our industry, because we're a low-margin industry in the printing industry, right? We need new tools to help us extract even the smallest amount of margin and take it right to the bottom line. And that's what really analytics is all about, is really collecting the data, extracting it from various sources, you transform it into a format that can be reported on, and then you load that into a data warehouse, and then you create these business intelligence reports that allow you to look at the data and understand it and put it to use, right? And one of the great quotes from Glenn here at Yellowfin is, data that's not shared is information wasted. And we believe that wholeheartedly. So at Kodak, we're really focused now on leveraging this rich source of data. And we're very fortunate with PRINERGY, because with 8.0, we introduced Track. It's through both. Anybody was there and got to see that. Well, we're talking bidirectionally to presses. Guess what? All that data goes in Oracle as well. It can be mined. We're talking to Insight. We're talking to multiple other products via business links. So PRINERGY is this wonderful, rich source of data that has its tentacles into multiple parts of your business, so the data resides in one place and can easily be extracted and be the launching pad for an analytics-enabled workflow. Okay, so we understand, though, that not every workflow is the same. They're always unique. And as we gather data, what you'll see in the reports is we're providing, and we'll continue to provide, more and more and more reports that are kind of common, that most customers would like to see. But we know your workflows are unique, and then you're going to want to study and understand things in greater detail that impact your business. So we will be bringing professional services out as well to help you go analyze the data, understand what you're trying to learn from that data, and then build unique reports that you can then deploy into your workflow and your operators can use to better manage what's happening out on the production floor or in the pre-press department. So as I mentioned, you're going to continually see new reports, new dashboards, new functionality as we rapidly go through our release cycle for the balance of this year and into next year. And even new analytics services are planned. For those who came to see us at Drupa, we were showing proof of concepts around being able to analyze and create a proper ink report, to be able to study and analyze consumables usage, to understand press usage and how those consumables are impacted by specific print conditions that have an impact on wear and cost and things that could help you be more efficient in your workflow. Okay. So our first available analytics service, of course, is one that most of you are probably interested in, is monitoring your PRINERGY system itself. So what we've done here is we believe this is very critical. So this is available for purchase by itself. You can subscribe to the service by itself. But we also think it's so important that we're bundling it into the workflow services that we're bringing to market. So a workflow service is a traditional PRINERGY function or a pre-press function that you would subscribe to and run, but we're going to bundle these analytics reports in with that. It's a great value. So what this service allows you to do is monitor your JTP usage by your active processing and your queue wait times, and allowing you to also look at other KPI reports, right, that you can quickly see, as you see as an example here. If you see the number of pages or artworks trending up over a time period or trending down, you have quick insight into how well the business, how busy you are. Likewise with separations. How many jobs are coming into the system, how many jobs are going out of the system. You'll have line of sight into that activity. Now, the other thing that's unique about this platform is many of you are expanding, right? You're going through M&A, or you're opening new facilities, you're getting into packaging, you're getting into wide format, and you've got a lot of different divisions or departments. All the data is collected up into your account in aggregate. So what that means is in your organization, and you could be looking at how well the business is running across a division, across a plant, across a department, and even down to an individual server. So that gives you the ability to analyze all of your PRINERGY systems and not just have reports for an individual server at an individual location, which is quite unique to the services that we're providing. So here's a little screenshot of one of the performance dashboards, and again, you can see the data is presented in a very, very simplistic way. All the most active JTPs are over to the left. You can see below hyperlinks. So one of the things that if you're not familiar with BI or business intelligence platforms, are the ability to drill in. What that means is, if I click on one of those bars in the graph, or I click on one of the hyperlinked JTP names, it brings up a time series study. Now, what I'm looking for here is, if you look at the sum of the active processing hours on my retrieved JTP on this particular set of days, everything looks good. The wait times are always below the processing times until I get to the 14th. Something happened on the 14th. Now, if that was an anomaly, the JTP could have got hung. You could have had network issues, you could have system issues, but you're allowed you to see these repetitive issues as they occur in your workflow and better help you identify what's going on, because all I have to do is click a button and all the underlying data is available for me to study. I just don't have the graphs, I also have the data. I can export this as a PDF, as a Word document or an Excel file, and send it around to others in the facility. Or I could have additional client licenses where people can view this on their tablet, on their phone, on any workstation across the organization. So a really, really helpful tool to allow you to analyze production data. So let's talk a little bit about our first workflow service, file archive and backup. I know a lot of folks, when we first introduced this, are like, why are you going after probably the most boring thing in pre-press, which is archiving jobs? And the reason we went there is it's the first service that we really could fully leverage the benefits of a cloud platform, okay? So all businesses, especially in our industry, have some type of data management and backup plan in place. You may have a tertiary server, and you may be using the PRINERGY archiving feature, and you may be still using tape or using a cloud-based service to back it up. But even though that companies have put these tools into place, if you look at this interesting results of this survey, they're still losing data. And when you lose data, it has a very, very significant impact on the business. In most cases, it results in lost sales. Some cases, you lose the entire customer, especially if you're doing financial printing, or you're printing and packaging for food products that are FDA regulated, or drugs, as an example, that are regulated. If you make a mistake, it has significant impacts, including some severe disruptions in the company's business. And the reason for that is you guys on the call are what's known as a value contributor, right? You're taking graphic arts files from your customers, and you're making them extremely valuable through all your acquired knowledge of color management and retouching and preparing those files for printing so that they're perfect. And when your customer receives it, they're pleased, and they come back to you for reprints. So when you have data loss occur, it has a knock-on effect in the business. In some cases, you may be recreating all of those files from scratch. If you have some of the source elements, or you're going back to your customer hat in hand and apologizing. So really having a platform and a cloud-based approach, we can mitigate a lot of this risk and also allow you to free up operators to focus on more important things by automating some of these processes. So first, what we did, as I mentioned earlier, every service in Kodak is expanded. It's not just a single piece of software that you subscribe to, it's a full solution. So what we're doing here for archiving is we also have an analytics dashboard that allows you to view your storage versus your subscribed tier to see how much space that you still have available. We also are collecting information on the number of files that are archived, retrieved, and deleted, so you can look at trending, right? Are you waiting until you pack out your server to do archiving and then impacting production, or have you automated that so it flows evenly overnight? We also track the amount of data that's copied to and from the cloud, so you can also size your internet pipe correctly and optimize that spending as well. So what we've done here is really looked at everything in re-architecting the PRINERGY archiving function. So we now take files and we wrap everything up in a .zip format so that it transfers across the internet much easier and more efficiently. We also have functions that when you delete a job in PRINERGY, the corresponding archive in the cloud is also deleted, which frees up space for other jobs, so you better manage your storage allotment in the cloud. The other thing that you can do is you can leverage RBA, right? So if you don't have RBA, we've introduced something new with this service called the RBA read-only license, and we provide a rule, we set it up for you, and you can then tag jobs and have them archived overnight. So as we mentioned earlier, sharing that internet bandwidth. So instead of archiving during the day when everybody in the front office is also busy, working in their cloud software, you're automating all these functions to the off hours, okay? As I mentioned, scalable data storage options are available, and it's also, as we saw earlier, it's analytics enabled. It's throwing off data about your archiving activities. We're collecting that, presenting it back to you in a very easy to use dashboard. But it's not just the improvements that we made in PRINERGY, right, where we're moved to the .zip format, and we're now also linking the deletion of a job in PRINERGY to the deletion of the job in the cloud. We also need to, what I call, bake in backup, right, so that the security in redundancy in the platform to prevent any loss of data. So as soon as you say archive a job or even archive a single file in PRINERGY, the file is wrapped up in a zip file, and we will continue, and it has recovery built into it. So if somebody runs up and pulls the network cable out of the back of the server, guess what? When you plug it back in, it's going to continue to retry until it successfully sends that file up to your cloud account. So you don't have to worry about incidents that occur in due course of operation. But when that file hits the primary data center, which is located near me here in Washington, D.C., 3 copies of that job archive are made, and they're stored across different racks and different equipment within that data center. And that eliminates the risk of hardware failure. If you're working with a small IaaS provider and they've got a single rack and a single, a few servers and a few storage devices, you're still at risk of losing the data if they have hardware failure, no different if you had the equipment on site. So here, by leveraging Microsoft's capabilities, we can provide more, right? So we're able to protect that data from hardware failure in the primary data set. Well, even better is it's being replicated in real time to a paired data center that's no less than 500 kilometers away, which gives you 6 copies of each job archive. And again, if you go and delete the job in PRINERGY, the PRINERGY Cloud Connector will send a command out to your cloud account, and poof, the archive is deleted as well. So that allows you to free up space. And with the new functionality in PRINERGY 8 and the new search function in Workshop, what you're able to do is identify the jobs that maybe are older or fall within a certain time period or for a certain customer that you're no longer doing work for, and you can just bulk clean up your cloud account and better manage your storage. If you're not familiar with the PRINERGY Archiver, this is the PRINERGY Workshop UI, and you can see here I've highlighted the Storage tab. And over to the right, I've highlighted the 3 functions that are available. So the benefit here is instead of having archiving managed offline or having backup managed offline, it's built right into the workflow, right? It is an event-driven backup and archive versus time-driven. And what that means is you can choose points in the workflow where you think it's important to back up certain files. So what I'm showing you here, if you look to the left, you'll see a .png and a .kif, and you'll see the links. I can archive everything that's in my job folder. VPS files, the source files, the fonts, the die lines, whatever I want to keep contained with my job, I can store them all together. Now, the beauty of this is while I'm working, if I decide that at some point that I've spent an hour and a half editing traps and assigning dot-shot screening, and I've got this artwork ready to go and it's approved, I can fire an archive process and back that up, and now I've got 6 copies of all those files stored for me in the cloud in case my work in process was impacted by a server failure or hardware failure on my PRINERGY box. So you can build in not only your archiving, but also archiving what I call temp archives for work in process. Because if I don't want to archive the job long term, as soon as I delete it in PRINERGY, the corresponding archive in the cloud has been removed. So it really is incorporating kind of archiving and file backup into one discrete workflow. So it's quite nice. So as I mentioned earlier, you can kind of see a little visual of the dashboard. Now, how do we help manage this for you? So you subscribe to a tier. They can start as low as 500 gigabytes. So for a 500 gigabyte storage account, you not only get the RBA read-only rule and the RBA archiving rule, you get one client access to your dashboard, and you also have the ability to manage that account. Now, we're not going to treat you like the phone company, and as soon as you hit your tier, we're going to do some type of overage. What you're going to get is an email from Kodak that says, hey, you hit your tier, we're going to give you a month to go and try to get back below the tier, because in some cases, all you need to go is you need time to be able to go get rid of some old jobs. Maybe you're no longer printing or you don't really need to archive and free up some space. On the second month, if you're still over your tier, you'll get a second an email letting you know that a Kodak sales specialist is going to contact you and help you either move up to the next tier or the appropriate tier, because more than likely your business is growing and you just need to subscribe to some additional storage space. Okay? And as I mentioned below, all the data that you're monitoring your activities, you're monitoring your storage, you're monitoring the amount of data. As you can see to the left in the filters, I can also monitor across multiple PRINERGY locations. So if I've got a large enterprise where I've got, say, 15 plants, well, I can manage all those from one single interface, which is quite nice. Not only my archiving activity, but also the JTP processing, pages, artwork separations, all in aggregate across my entire company, my division, my plant, or my department, which is quite unique. So that is the overview of the new cloud services. We're not doing too bad on time. We wanted to have 15 minutes left for questions. So Joanna, I think what I'll do before we start that is, I know you wanted to speak a little bit about the upcoming GUA in Toronto.
Right. Thank you, Steve. And we do have some questions, but let me just first do a little plug for the GUA conference. It's taking place in Toronto, which is my hometown, so I am a little bit biased. We would love for as many of our customers to join us. The GUA University kicks off the conference from May 8th to 9th, and then the actual conference starts with a welcome reception on the 9th, and then it goes on to the Friday, which is May the 12th. We are in partnership with Ryerson University, and that's where the conference will actually be held. And the hotel that we're going to be staying at is the Marriott right at the Eaton Center. So it's right in the heart of downtown Toronto. I'm going to, when I stop talking, I'm going to put in the website address in the chat line, and then you can visit the website, take a look, and if you're interested, a registration is open. We would love to see you at the GUA, where Steve will be there in person talking about PRINERGY Cloud, so you don't want to miss that.
Well, we're actually going to have some new services to highlight at the conference as well.
Excellent. Okay, so Steve,
nice
we
teaser.
do have one question. The question is, will the new functionality for deleting archives upon PRINERGY job deletion be included in future PRINERGY releases for on-premise archiving as well?
No. So when we re-architected the PRINERGY Archiver, again, it was designed for working with a cloud storage medium. The legacy product that you're familiar with, right, was designed initially for archiving to tape. So you can't erase content from a tape, right? You could always only append, and that's always is now when you archive to disk, you're constantly growing that storage on that disk. So the cloud function will solve that problem for you, and also give you better redundancy and data security than probably you're able to do on-prem with a tertiary server that could fail, or manual, in some cases, driven backup schemes that people forget to do, or they can't do, or they forget to take off-site. The new cloud service just builds all that in. You don't have to worry about it. And you'll see if you're interested in talking to a sales rep, you'll see it's also very cost-effective.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. We do have another question. Can PRINERGY Cloud archiving be used even if I'm not currently licensed or using the PRINERGY archive services?
So as I mentioned earlier, right, Kodak has an expanded definition of a service. A service gives you all of the licenses that you need to do a specific function. So as an example, if I was an existing PRINERGY archive to disk customer, and I'm very interested in moving to the cloud, not only do I get all the benefits that I mentioned earlier, I could also eliminate paying maintenance on the license to archive to disk because it's part of your subscription. So when you sign up to a subscription for the archiving, you get an archiver license, you get an RBA read-only license, and you get one license for your decision analytics dashboards, and then those you can get additional licenses for extra cost in a 2, 5, 10-pack, and they're not very expensive. For a 2-pack, I believe it's $88 a month.
Okay, one more question. For cloud storage, does Kodak envision cloud-based archives to be an additional disaster location in addition to a local archive, or a complete replacement for local archives? Will cloud archive be the only future supported option?
Well, we're still going to support archive to disk. We've got a lot of customers that have their files local. Most customers that we've spoken to so far that have taken the service, it's a replacement. They don't want to deal with, the problem with archiving local is, although it's the sunk cost fallacy that we're all as human beings succumb to, right? You've invested in the server, but at some point you're going to have to replace the server. The operating system is going to be out of date and no longer supported. You're going to run out of space. You still have to back it up and protect it. So we believe that the future path is to fully leverage cloud platforms to make archiving and backup of that data, much more efficient and much more secure than what you can do locally. But we'll still support archive to disk, in its current iteration for the foreseeable future. No plans to stop it. We think customers, as they see the benefits, are going to migrate. The other benefit to migrating is allows you to clean up your existing archive. I had one customer, it was at 4 terabytes, and when they moved to the cloud, they're now less than 2 terabytes. There's a lot of junk that's there in your old archives that you can take the opportunity to free up. You can bulk move it. They moved 10,000 jobs over Christmas holiday to use RBA. Okay, other question?
That is all the, I think the questions that we have to discuss. There is some pricing questions, but I think that's best for a one-on-one discussion. So I've taken note of the individual asking that. There are no other questions in the chat line. We still have a lot of people on the webinar, though, so why don't we just wait a moment in case more customers have questions. And I just want to make sure everybody has found the chat feature. If you open that up, you will see the information about the GUA conference. I shared the website address there, so you can go through and check that out. I don't see any more questions. Were there any questions that you were expecting to get, Steve, that you haven't got?
Well, yeah, I'll ask myself a question.
Well,
in discussions, we've customers have also
We've got
asked,
more questions, so let's get to these first. Okay, will Insight and ICW be supported in the cloud as well?
Well, what we're going to be looking at is, our future path out. We'll be looking at specific PRINERGY functionality or any other UWS functionality that makes sense to begin to migrate to the cloud. So, we're looking at everything. Our long-term vision is there's a cloud option for the entire portfolio, right? But as you can imagine, we've got a large portfolio, and that's going to take some time to get there. But, and as well, we also then on a path where we're still supporting customers who have the on-prem version, and then there's a cloud version. So there's a long-term path here for us. But again, I think you can start to see the strategy, right? Net new functionality, and you're going to see some brand new services that are at GUA in Toronto as well being introduced. So new stuff, new capabilities being introduced. And then like archiving, we're taking the functionality that's on-prem that could best leverage your cloud platform and then queuing those up and beginning that work.
Okay, we now have lots of questions, Steve. The next one, what kind of APIs will be available to interface the analytics to existing third-party systems, EI, FileMaker, EFI, AutoCount, QuadTech, etc.?
Yeah, so this actually was a question asked quite a bit when we did our POC, proof of concept at Drupa. So we do have plans to allow people to extract the data. Again, we're still very much in the early stages, right, of the project. Right now, there's a manual export of particular reports, and we will be looking at introducing the ability to mine the data from other sources, because we realize that PRINERGY has become this rich source of data, and then other products would have value from being able to tap it. But it's not in an early phase plan, but it is something that has been raised, and we are looking at when and where it's best suited to bring that functionality.
Okay, great. Are there local hardware and software requirements?
So the nice thing with the first services is no. That's another reason why we went with archiving first. There's absolutely no training required. Once it's set up, it's just a different storage medium. You're using PRINERGY like you always have, and then your analytics dashboards run in any browser, Google Chrome, Safari, whatever you The only thing that's being installed local is what we call the cloud connector. And once we've provisioned your cloud account, PRINERGY is talking bidirectionally to that cloud account continuously. So as an example, if you install today, we immediately begin collecting 3 years worth of historical data from your PRINERGY database. And while you're working, every 15 minutes, we're incrementally updating the data warehouse with the processes that you're doing in your due course of working. So that's it. There's really a one-time install of the cloud connector. And then after that, as new services come online, in some cases, you just subscribe to them and we deliver, as an example, new dashboard reports and the training, and you're off to the races. So it's very easy to leverage the new services.
Okay, fantastic. With the historical data already in the Oracle database, will the historical data already in the Oracle database be available in reporting at launch?
Yes, as I mentioned, we go back 3 years, but that's a setting that can be changed. If you don't want to go back 3 or you want to go back 5, it can be done, as well as the periodicity of collection is also something that we control. But the nice thing about the data collection is when you collect the data from Oracle, let's say I've got job number 1, first job that I've ever done, and I collect that data, it's now in the data warehouse, I can destroy that PRINERGY job, and the data about it remains in my data warehouse. So that's another nice benefit of the analytics platform.
Okay, next question. Does an archive job stay in the local database, or will archiving jobs allow us to prune the database? Prune the database to be able to restore the job later.
Yeah, right now it's still leveraging because, you know, it's retaining all the metadata links, right, where the job needs to go, what folder structure, especially when it uses a defined folder structure that could have multiple subfolders. So you still have that benefit of, you know, of having the files moved offline and purged from the system, but the metadata remains. But the other, you know, benefit is, again, is that we do blow away jobs. Like if there's jobs that you don't archive, you don't need, you know, some customers will export that job and then write the history to text. One of the beauty of the analytics is the data's in your data warehouse. You don't need to worry about any of that. You can just, you know, export the job and delete it, and then history is retained for reporting purposes. Now, if you want history to see what process templates you used, or, you know, you still need to write that history to text. But as far as analyzing, processing, we'll collect the data and store it in your cloud account.
Okay, still a few more questions here. Will you be renting JTPs for a local system on a temporary basis?
That's something that has been raised with customers, something that we've looked at, and I think something that we'll be interested in. So if you could collect the person's name, is that something that we could actually do today under a subscription model? You know, if you know you only need JTP for a certain period of time, we could accommodate that.
Okay, I'm just making note of who asked this. Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't formally kicked off a project for that, but it has come up in many conversations.
Okay, great. The next question, are Press and Pandora templates backed up to the cloud as well?
So if you've imported a template into your job and you archive the entire job, right, from Job Finder, right, if you select the job and say archive, everything that's in Job Home is backed up. So you also want to have good, you know, file management practices in prepress. I know over the years, you know, I'm an old timer. When I started in the business, you know, the local area networks were painfully slow, and we did a lot of what was called sneaker net. So we had a lot of procedures around not, you know, making multiple copies of files and being sloppy with our file management processes. So, you know, now that you're copying things across the internet, it would be, you know, good practice to make sure that your job home and your user-defined folders are well structured, and you're not collecting a bunch of garbage and extra copies of files. But yeah, everything that's in the job home is archived. Fonts, guidelines, whatever you want to stick in there.
Okay, still a bunch of questions. They're coming. This is great. I'm loving it. Okay, will you be able to do custom queries in the analytics tool, or are they all canned?
So our initial release, of course, is, you know, just to kind of introduce analytics to our user base. So right now the reports are canned, but as I mentioned, towards the latter half of this year, we will begin in certain regions to introduce professional services. to be able to sit down with you and help develop those type of queries. We've had all kinds of questions. One example, a customer said, you know, I have thousands and thousands of preps templates. Can you create a report for me that shows me how often they're used so I can identify the ones that are stale and just delete them out of my my library and make management of templates much easier. So that's an example of a custom request.
Okay. Next question, where will the Oracle database reside? Will it still be local?
Database is still local. Yeah, it's core to everything PRINERGY does. Okay.
Next question, can PRINERGY software updates be done through the cloud?
Well, for the, that's a good question. So we are looking at other extensions of the cloud platform. You know, as an example, I've had customers saying, can I back up a ghost image? You know, take a ghost image of my platform and store it, you know, once a week or whatever, again, just so I can quickly recover from an incident. Also, the PRINERGY database and config files to back those up. As far as deployment, I mean, you could kind of say that technically it's happening today, right? Your installers are posted on PartnerPlace and you download them and you run them. So we'll have the same kind of thing happening with the cloud connector. As updates are made to it, it'll update itself, kind of like you have your, you know, Apple operating system updates, your Microsoft operating system updates. It'll be a similar approach. Right now, we do require you to download a run installer, but we want to phase that out.
Okay. Next question is, what version of PRINERGY is required to use this?
So right now, we've introduced on 7.5, and we're in the process of support for 8.02, which is in works and being out in a very short period of time.
Okay, next question. What if we already have a cloud-based backup system? Can this be integrated in PRINERGY in order to access the analytics?
So, I mean, if you have a cloud-based backup, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, there's some inherent pros and cons to both approaches, right? The thing about the archive is it allows you to do what I call trigger events, right? There's job-driven events that will trigger an archive to happen versus waiting for a timer. Most people are backing up overnight, which doesn't really do you any good if you know, lose data work in process during the day. You can still have them both work together if you would like, but you can purchase the analytics by itself. You don't have to have archive to get the analytics. It's just bundled. There's a much nicer value if you wanted to move away from a, you know, a homegrown archive and backup solution to ours, because you get analytics as part of the workflow service. But you can also get the analytics completely by itself if you're interested.
Okay, next question. What are the Azure storage tiers that the platform is utilizing?
So what we are, for archiving, we are using what's called a blob storage account, and it is GRS located, if you're familiar with some of the technical terms. So what that means is there's a blob storage account. It's typically, it's a Microsoft offer for storing files that are large in size, you know, such as a zip file full of PRINERGY job files, or an MP3 or a movie or whatever you'd like to put up there. And then the GRS is, it's replicated to the paired data center in near real time. Okay.
Okay, getting down to the last questions here. Can I get tech support for PRINERGY through the cloud?
What was that? Can you get what support? My phone chopped out on me.
Okay, tech support. Technical.
Tech support. Of course. I mean, you call the response center, as you always have. The guys there have one of their servers provisioned to the Kodak demo account in each region, and they're working with dashboards, and they'll definitely assist you. What we do when we provision your account, all setup is done remotely. So as an example for archiving, let's say you want to take the Tier 1 500 gigabyte subscription. It lists for $249 a month, very affordable. You're going to get contacted by someone at Kodak. You're going to be directed to your Partner Place account. You're going to download your cloud connector. You're going to install it, and then we'll dial in and set everything up for you, including your process templates and your RBA rules. We'll show you how to use your dashboard, and then you're off to the races. Very easy.
Okay, we're coming right down to the wire here, but we do have a couple more questions. When archiving jobs when will archiving jobs on the cloud, when archiving jobs on the cloud, will the original input files and job history be retained?
Yes, so as long as you don't delete the job from the database, it's all there. So the nice thing here, if you're not familiar with PRINERGY's Archiver, what happens when you purge the files and you log into Workshop, it'll say that it's archived and files are offline, but your thumbnails are still there. You still look like you have an imposition in the job. All the history is there. And when you're ready to output plates, you just retrieve those files and bring them back to the local PRINERGY system, and then you output proof of plates. Very easy.
Okay, we have multiple sites using PRINERGY. Would we have multiple cloud accounts or a single account?
Yeah, well, so you have what's called you're a tenant, right? So your organization would be a tenant. And then there's the one-one relationship between each PRINERGY server and then its corresponding cloud account. So think of a pyramid, right? I've got company A, and then so I look at data from the level of company A as the divisional manager as an example. And then each PRINERGY system, if we actually go back, you can see it right here. Come back, there you go. So you see how we've got this little agent, 111, those are all individual PRINERGY servers. And they're all, you can't see it because I got this in the way, but there would be a customer, right, a division, a plant, all that could be filtered away. But the answer is yes, you could see each of the individual archive accounts. Now the data, the metadata for analytics is in aggregate. So when I click on JTP usage and I'm at the divisional level, I see an aggregate view of how well my JTPs are being processed across all servers. And then I can filter down to my individual server if I need to.
Okay, we have one last question and then we'll have to wrap it up. The last question is, will the analytics get info on actual plates made from the plate setter or just plates sent from PRINERGY?
Yeah, so I will say it because we're the first out at Kodak onto the PRINERGY Cloud platform, but it's a platform for all divisions at Kodak. So the other teams and other divisional development teams are looking at the platform and are looking at how they will leverage it. So you'll have to stay tuned to see what we're coming with. So I'll leave you with a teaser.
And we just have one quick question. I think you did answer this. The question is, did someone ask if PREP's templates are archived?
Yeah, so if you, import your JDF or .jt and you archive the entire job, anything in job home is archived, but I could also put a PREP's native file, I could put a Pandora file directly in my user-defined folders, and it also will get backed up.
Okay, excellent. That brings us.
Hey, we're right at an hour too. Not bad.
It's pretty good, Steve. I'm impressed. Yeah.
I got to thank everyone for coming. I really appreciate everyone. It's a pretty large group, and you're taking the time out of a busy afternoon to come and join us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you, Steve. That was fantastic. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day.